For more than half a decade, Samsung has been consistent in releasing two flagship devices every year. In the spring, we get the Galaxy S model, which is Samsung's bread and butter, ushering in new versions of its software and giving the general consumer a sleek and powerful device. But if you're a true Samsung loyalist, you probably know that the company's fall release is typically the device you should wait for. But I'm not so sure that's true this time around. I'm Nick Gray, the high-tech traveler, and this is my review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Before I get started, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to say that the Note 8 isn't a good phone or that you shouldn't buy it, but the prestige around owning a Note isn't what it used to be. In the past, people bought the Note because it was the biggest and baddest smartphone around, and while it is the largest device within Samsung's lineup, its screen is only 0.1 inches larger than the S8 Plus's. Adding insult to injury, the phone even runs on the same exact chip. Besides the S Pen, the only real upgrades that the Note has over Samsung's spring flagship devices is an extra 2 gigs of RAM and a dual camera. I'll be talking about the phone's performance and camera capabilities in a minute, but I want to start things off with the design. Looking at this thing, it's clear that Samsung's done a lot of work to bring a unified design language to its phones. Without pulling out the S Pen, it could easily be mistaken for the S8 Plus. Sure, the curves of the display have been reduced to improve usability of the S Pen, but the only other distinguishing characteristic of this phone is the dual camera array on the back. I'd like to also point out that the fingerprint sensor is still awkwardly positioned on the back of the phone, but it is in a slightly better position than it was on the Galaxy S models since it's been given a little bit of separation from the camera lenses thanks to the heart rate sensor being placed between them. Because of the phone size, it's still hard to reach, but I find that I don't smudge the camera lens as much as I do on my Galaxy S8. As for everything else, the Note 8 looks and feels extremely familiar. You get the metal frame that's sandwiched between front and back glass panels, Bixby button and volume rocker on the left edge, power button on the right, and the S Pen, USB-C port, and 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom. Overall, this phone looks and feels like a premium device, as it should, since you're shelling out nearly $1,000 for it. So what kind of performance should you expect from a phone that costs $930? Without getting too technical, you get the fastest Android smartphone I've ever used. The Snapdragon 835 processor used inside this phone is quite common this year, but Samsung's done quite a bit of tweaking to its software to make sure that this phone is stupid fast. It's an incredible device for gaming, and even kills the competition when it comes to multitasking. And I'm not talking about the nifty little software trick that allows you to pin two apps together so that they open in split screen automatically. I'm talking about jumping from app to app without any hiccups, and even picking up a game exactly where you left off 2 hours ago without it reloading. If you like big bright screens, you'll love the Note 8. Its 6.3-inch Quad HD Plus panel is the same 18.5:9 aspect ratio as the Galaxy S8. It's just as bright, and viewing angles are just as good. But there is one difference. The edge isn't as curved. Samsung says that the curve was reduced to improve usability of the S Pen. While that does make total sense, it is interesting to see how the edge display seems to be getting smaller and smaller with each new Galaxy phone that comes out. While I do love the large display and all the performance that's packed into this phone, they do take a toll on battery life, which is really disappointing since the built-in cell only has 3,300 milliamps. Naturally, that brings me to the obligatory mention of last year's Note 7 and its exploding battery. Yes, Samsung is playing it safe this time around, but it's extremely noticeable when the Note 8 doesn't last as long as the Galaxy S8 Plus. The phone will still make it through a full day with about 4 hours of screen on time, but I've come to expect a whole lot more from Samsung's Note series. Making things worse is the odd decision of going with Quick Charge 2.0 when Quick Charge 4.0 is making its way to some devices already, and Quick Charge 3.0 has been around for more than 2 years now. And then there's the camera. What you're looking at here is a dual camera array which includes two 12-megapixel sensors. The main sensor has a 26mm f1.7 lens, and the second one has a 52mm f2.4 lens, effectively giving you 2x zoom. Samsung isn't the first to offer this type of dual camera setup, but they are the first to include optical image stabilization on both sensors. This theoretically means that video will be a lot more stable, and pictures taken in low light should turn out better. That theory does pan out for the most part, but the overall image quality isn't noticeably better than the Galaxy S8's, and falls short when compared to the Pixel and the U11. But having a second sensor on the back of the phone still has its advantages. You get to zoom into your subject, and you can also digitally blur out the background. Since this is Samsung's first attempt at this, the images don't always turn out that great, but at least the phone does capture both shots with both sensors each and every time, giving you two unique pictures for every live focus shot that you take. If you're still wondering why in the world you should buy this phone, the answer lies in the S Pen. As it has with every new iteration, the S Pen has learned a few new tricks. It now supports live currency and measurement conversion, along with language translation when selecting text within the browser. And if you're a fan of taking notes while the display is off, you'll be happy to hear that those notes can now be up to 100 pages long. But my favorite is the new Live Messages feature, which allows you to share an animation of your writings or doodles with your friends. The best part is that it creates a standard GIF file so that there's no limitation as to who you can share it with. While pointing out the new features of the S Pen gives me a few talking points, its main appeal is still its basic note-taking functionality. We may live in a digital era, but there's still something extremely satisfying about writing something down by hand, rather than punching it out on a virtual keyboard. And in all honesty, that's the only real reason why you should buy the Note 8. Every other feature offered by this phone can be found on a cheaper Samsung device or something from the competition. If you simply have to have a phone with a stylus and have $930 to spare, the Note 8 won't disappoint. But if you could care less about writing on your phone's screen, there are plenty of other options that will make you happy. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this review, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. And don't forget to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on the Galaxy Note 8. I have additional videos in the works for this phone, so make sure you subscribe to the channel or check out my other videos. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.